We are recording live. Hey guys, it's Dr. Dave and Rob, and we have our first guest, which is Rok Morin, who's been a guest on our show in the past. Episode 5, Rok Morin, also known as Rok Morin from episode 5 of the Good Dads Club podcast. Before we get started, if you're hearing this on audio, you just heard our really cool intro by Dramatic Movie Guy. So, in a world where
in a world.
That was good. That was really good.
Thank you.
So, guys, welcome to the show today. Lots of stuff to talk about. We pretty much do this unscripted. Get a couple dads together and talk about dad life. So, really, Rok, I was driving to work yesterday. I got a text from Rok, and it was like, "Hey, you guys ever gonna have other guests than you and your brother?" And I said, "Yeah, tomorrow. What are you doing?" And that's kind of, we and Rob were just talking about that way. It's just like, bringing guys out. First of all, you're awesome. We can always have you back on. I know people loved your podcast. So it was great to have you back on and just talking about some great things. But, I'm going to kind of jump right in with you, Rok, because we talked on your episode a lot about, I was talking about some firsts that I was going through at the time. I was realizing, or actually some first. My son was kind of, growing up and going on, and you brought up a concept of, look out for those lasts with your kids. And we started this Good Dads Club back in September, and here we are 3 months into it. So it's interesting. We just went through a sports season. We went through the fall season. We started and what happened over the last few weeks was there was a lot of dads posting. They were going to their son or their daughter's last sporting event, whether it's, club soccer, the kid's 19 years old, or last football game, or whatever, last cheerleader, whatever it is. And I'm thinking about all those days that I've been spending with my kids on the sidelines going to practice, from the third grade, second grade on. And all of those posts were like with these emojis of these guys with tears. Like guys were like brokenhearted. And I was like, my goodness, that's going to happen to me someday. And I just thought that was such a huge, huge concept because two things, wow, that's going to happen. And the second thing is maybe I should really, really appreciate going to those games right now, being on the sideline, being center court, watching my son play ball or whatever, because you know what? There's going to be a day when that's all over. And I just thought that was a kind of pretty interesting phenomena that you don't get to see. And my takeaway from that was, maybe I should really appreciate, the now, because again, it's going to be an end of a season. So I just thought I'd throw it out there, Rok, because it was kind of the beginning of a conversation we had. And if you guys want to comment on that and through your experience,
like you said, those seasons, they come and go, but, a recurring thing that keeps coming up in the Facebook pages when dads are asking for advice, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? Is I constantly see, just be present, be there for your kids. And so when they're newborn babies, being present in whatever that requires at that point in their life. And when they're toddlers and going to school and starting all of that, and getting involved in sports, or, I'm more in the realm of where your brother Rob is at. My kids are older, moving out of the house. My youngest is 17. I'm a pretty big guy and he makes me look small, right? They don't need a lot of my time. They don't need rides here and there and all that stuff anymore. So that season, for them needing me all the time is definitely past, but they still need me in other ways, for advice and things. And because it's
a transition.
Yeah. When they were younger, I established that relationship. So I feel good when they do come to me and ask for help or advice or whatever it might be. But it's also cool in that I'm having totally different kinds of conversations with my kids, more adult type of a relationship. I don't look at it as that they're my friends. I'm still the dad. But the relationship with my kids as adults is very different than it was, even just 5 years ago when they were much younger.
Which, if I can just jump in real quick, is kind of weird because, last year was my first year not coaching a sport. My sons, I always coached since Nicky was a little boy. Now my daughter's a cheerleader and they evidently don't need me to coach cheer. So I don't coach anymore.
The tumbling days are over.
Oh, I could still tumble. They just don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that, evidently. But what's weird is, like, now, like you said, Rok, we're answering questions. And what's funny sometimes is I have to sit back and think, am I qualified to answer most of these questions? These are some, like my son's 21 and he's finishing up some of his college stuff. And he said, hey, Dad, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Or he works for Apple and he is setting up retirement packages. And he's like, well, what if I choose this, this, and this? And I'm like, yeah, that's probably what you should do, right? And I have no clue because that wasn't something I was really involved with, but it's made me, like with coaching, learn. When Nick first started sports and he started soccer, growing up as a kid in North Jersey, I wasn't a big soccer kid in the 80s, so I knew nothing about soccer. So I got a DVD back in the day and learned how to coach soccer. So now I'm learning a lot about investment strategies and programs and things so I can guide my oldest son into how he should manipulate or work with the monies he's making at his job. It's very interesting how like we said before, it's transition. It's, now we go from this to this to this. It's from having an infant to having a toddler to having a school age kid to a college age kid to now how do we be the best, most effective coach as they get older?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. You're not qualified, but if any of us waited until we're qualified to be parents, we would never have kids, right? So,
yeah, and that's one of the themes, and I'm just going to reiterate that because a lot of times you listen, if you're listening to this on a podcast or you're outside in the internet world or whatever that is, and you're not inside our closed group, we have dads inside a closed group on Facebook, and it's just, we have about 1,200 dads there right now. And I think it comes up a lot. Dads say like, I've had dads say, I feel uncomfortable being in this group because it's called the Good Dads Club, or, I don't feel qualified, or I don't feel, hey, could you help me be? And the reality is that's exactly how we all feel. I mean, you'd have to be like 100 years old and have like 100 kids and then have that, then if you've been a dad I've been a dad for 14 years. I mean, that'd be a PhD after, 8. So the reality is we have more in time invested than so the thing is, give ourselves some credit. When we feel inadequate, that's exactly what we're supposed to feel like. And the only difference is what we have now through the blessing of technology is here's 3 dads talking about it. But then there's people out there hearing more about it. And then we've got our group where there's another, 1,000, 1,200 guys in there. And I always say the same thing. You post a question in there or a concern, and I've gotten feedback back every single time, and I'm not, you may not get, the right answer, but you're going to get about 100 or 1,000 answers back. And the reality is as varied as the answers might be, will just reinforce the fact that most really, you're right where you're supposed to be if you feel clueless, and just follow.
Right.
And you said one of my favorite sayings is I like to say that I'm not going to make the same mistakes my parents made. I'm going to find new creative ways to screw up my kids.
You know what? And Rok, that's funny. What I always tell people is we all do the best we can with the information that we have. Yeah. Like my dad, our dad, he lost his own father when he was 6. So when he had kids, he didn't know what the heck he was doing. And he kind of made it up as he went along with the information that he had.
Which was from the Navy, by the way.
We have a skill set based on that, and we build on it from there.
And he learned how to be a dad in the Navy. So just sidebar, 3 boys, all he had was the Navy. So we wore skivvies. We had all the jargon. What is that?
Yeah, we knew skivvies. And on Sundays when we would go to church, he would yell, "Move out!" And we would go run into the car. Right, yeah. So it was a little bit more of a military upbringing in that regard. But that was the skill he had. And there's guys in this group who are listening to this podcast who, have that or less, who are trying to figure this thing out. And that's why it's important, for us to kind of share these experiences. Basically, you do the best you can with the information that you've got.
Yeah. And every generation it's different, and raising kids is different today than it was. New challenges like trying to keep up with the kids' technology and what they're dealing with that. Yeah. It's very different. You have to be adaptable.
Well, I think, in the past week, we've seen a lot of comments and questions on the Facebook page about guys who are nervous or concerned about being a good dad, and what, they're nervous about it or really, really have anxiety about it. And a lot of the feedback, and I agree with a lot of the feedback, has been, put the kids' needs first, be yourself, be open and honest, and you won't mess this thing up. As long as you're not being abusive and completely intolerant. If you're really putting the needs of your children first, you're going to figure out a way to make this thing work. And there doesn't need to be that much anxiety around it. You've got to just kind of trust.
Yeah.
I'm going to just switch tone here because, Monday, on Monday I put on in our group, I posted that we got this puppy. And I have to share this because I was like, hey, I got this puppy on Friday and all weekend. It's been this wonderful thing. And we're connecting and we're on the floor with the kids. And that's all true. And the reality of it is, so my kids I don't think the kids have even pet the dog since Monday. So, I didn't want, so on Monday, I got out there and I was like, yeah, this is so I hope I didn't sell the idea of go out, run out and get a puppy for your family, because now I'm going to follow up 3 or 4 days later. I don't know if you can see the bags under my eyes. I'm absolutely exhausted. I've been up since 5 a.m. I'm going to just show you the culprit. Oh, I just clicked it.
You
see Henry?
Dave, your head is glowing.
Oh, nice.
There's Henry.
Good looking dog.
Yeah.
What do you say, Henry?
Pretty much. He's got the peeing and the pooping down pretty good.
Yeah.
We just got to get him to do that outside. He's a very good chewer. Heck of a chewer. Champion.
Champion chewer.
So absolutely exhausting. But just all kidding aside, this is an attempt. But I'll tell you what, as my son is moving on, I feel like I have a newborn again. And Rok, you mentioned, I think it was yesterday in our text, like, there's a reason why, we have kids at young age, because being a parent, and this is exactly taking this dog out and peeing and training is just like being a parent again, is absolutely exhausting.
The great thing about a dog, though, at some point your kids stop running to the door when you get home. The dogs never stop doing that.
So now I've got my new boy, as my son wants to go hang with his kid friends. Now I have a new loyal companion. So
you still have the girls though, Dave.
Yes. So guys, so one of the things I want to talk about every week on the podcast is we find some things that are going on in the news. So I like this to scour the world for dads in the news, right? So I was just checking out this article that I just posted to the fan page, and it's about dads in America are actually older than ever. And it turns out that the average age, hold on, where's my article? It's not coming up on me. Oh.
Just make it up.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody knows.
So it's just an interesting concept, because I know we have a lot of young dads that are coming in there, but the average age for dads here, I became a dad at 30. Years ago, I think in the 1970s, it was like 26 or 25 was an average age. And now we're looking at ages 35 and 30 and 35 is not uncommon. And what they're seeing with that is the maturity level of older dads and the impact that it has on society is pretty interesting. So I'm thinking, when I had my kids, when I started having kids when I was 30, if I would have had them younger, I was all screwed up. You know what I mean? So it was really having kids at that point made a change. But it's nice to have a little more of a maturity going into any wisdom or maturity we have going forward helps a lot.
Yeah, I was 27.
You were 27, right?
Yeah.
I was 23 or 24 when I had my first one. Still in college, going through chiropractic school, all that. So I was just talking to somebody about this today. She's 40 and she's pregnant for the 4th time. Her other kids her youngest, next one older, is 13. And I'm like, man, just the thought of having kids at this point in my life would be exhausting. However, I do think that I would be a better, more patient father if I had kids, young kids starting today. I'm definitely a better dad today than I was back then. I feel like I've just learned so much through my kids, but I'm just older and I hope wiser and more calmer and more patient. So, but I probably had more energy to deal with young kids back then. So there's pluses and minuses to both sides of it.
That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think at this point, I would be too exhausted. I would just, oh my God, I can't even begin to imagine what that would be like at this point. I know, like, my daughter now, when she comes to me late at night on a Saturday and she's like, hey, Dad, let's blah, blah, blah. I'm like, are you friggin' kidding me? Now we're going to do this? All right, we'll do it. You know, whatever you say, you're the princess. But I do it because I'm a dad. But I know, like, when Nick was that age, I was raring to go, you know, because I was younger and I didn't have as many things going on. And, you know, I guess it's kind of a catch-22. I couldn't do it again. I really couldn't do it again.
Well, this puppy is reminiscent for sure. I mean, reminiscent. I know it's a shorter curve. You know, hopefully within a month or so that we got this thing under wraps. But I mean, like, woo, I did not expect that curve to go through. So, like I said, I was fired up in the video that I laid out on Monday. But like, today's video that I put in the group will be more of just a follow up to that. Just so I don't want anybody to go out and take my advice and.
But the message though is, if you're an older dad and you're thinking about maybe having more kids, go get a puppy first. See how that goes.
Exactly.
Yeah, see how you manage that. Well, you know, it's funny. Didn't they used to say that to younger dads too? They used to say that to younger dads. You know, hey, before you have a kid, go have a puppy. See how that pans out for you.
Yeah.
So, guys, one of the articles that I just put out yesterday, and I was wondering if I should put this article out. I call it "Dating Your Baby Mommy." You know, instead of your baby daddy. So it's an article. If you haven't read it, I just posted it on dating our wives or significant others or the mother of our children and the significance of that and how that plays out and how important that is. So maybe we'll speak to that because, you know, we've got a couple different situations here and a couple different experiences, but, you know, finding the time to do that is hard for us. We don't get babysitters as we should have, but we never really got into that. So we didn't really go out much, but the times we do go out and we have dinner and we plan it and we go on those dates, have a huge impact, not only on our relationship, but obviously I think it's important that the kids see, you know, mom and dad also, you know, having that we love each other and so they have something to model there. So I'm going to throw that topic out there. I'm going to also let people know that if they go to the fan page or they'll be able to see that article or the website, our website, if you don't know what it is www.thegooddadsclub.com. Go to the articles. If you go to where the articles are, every other article is our video blog of the podcast. So they get to see us if they're not seeing us right now from the website, which actually, if they're watching the video, then I think the only way to do it, you can see it from the website or it also links to YouTube. But you can go check out the article. But, you know, if you haven't read the article, guys, just little comments on maybe your experience with that and the importance of it and some of the things you might do.
You know, I grew up in a household where my dad made it very clear that my mom was here and we were way down here as far as his priorities, and not in a negative way, but, you know, look, he made a commitment to her long before we came around, and they're together after we all left the house. So, but it was also setting the example of what it meant to be a good dad, but that also meant being a good husband. And
right.
For some of us out there, that also means being a good ex-husband, you know, and that putting the priorities and the needs of the kids, that is an important piece there, is that having a good relationship with their mom, whether you're married to them or not. I think that's huge. So as far as the dating piece, that was something. I am a divorced dad and remarried, and my second wife has been a part of my kids' life since they were very young. But we regularly, when the kids were young, went out on dates. And now that the kids are mostly gone, it's just us, so we can go whenever we want. But I felt like that was a very important part for our relationship, but also in showing that example for our kids. And the date might be an extravagant dinner out, or it might just be staying in, but it's just the two of us watching a movie or going for a walk with the dogs, whatever it might be. But scheduling or having that time for the two of us is very important.
Yeah, we try to go out when we can. It's hard, you know. It's not always easy, but now it's easier that the older ones are older and they could watch the girl, or we can put the girls, you know, send a girl to a friend's house or something like that, and we can take the time to ourselves. But I think what's just as important, at least as far as the relationship goes, is showing her the respect and the love in front of them as often as I can. You know, every morning before I leave the house, I try to make sure I give her a big hug and kiss, and we tease each other, and we goof around, and we have to have that relationship. And again, I'm sensitive to the fact that some guys are dealing with divorce and separation, and that's not easy. And I don't know how to deal with that. Luckily I haven't had to deal with that. But in my situation with my wife, we fight, and we fight in front of the kids, and we fight loud, and we fight hard in front of the kids, because I want the kids to know that this is what it is. This is the relationship. We are very honest and very passionate. So we fight, but the flip side is we also love each other very much. And because we love each other as much as we do, we can fight like we do and then still give each other a hug. I was talking to one of our other members last night in a car ride on the way home, and we talked about, he said, never go to bed angry. And I was like, yeah, my grandparents told me that too. I go to bed angry. I go to bed.
I would never go to bed.
Right. Are you freaking kidding me? I said, there's nights that we go to bed with our middle fingers hanging high. We're like, good night. But we go to bed with that middle finger sticking up. But we figure it out the next day because you have to, and that's, how it goes. But we are passionate people, and we're passionate on the bad side and on the good side. So I think it's part of, the part of parenting is showing them this is the reality. Like you said, some people they divorce, some people separate, some people aren't married, they don't get married, some people are married and they deal with it in the ways that they can. And all of the things that we do, Rock, like you said, is we're showing them by example, this is how we love and respect one another.
I think if you shield your kids too much from the reality of what it's like to be in a long-term relationship like that, then they're not as prepared for it themselves, because they don't understand the hard work that goes into being in a relationship like that it has its ups and downs. It's not always just that wonderful romantic part that, is that first few months, right? That then reality sets in and challenges set in. And then when the stresses of life and kids and work and this and that can creep into your relationship. But how do you manage that stuff? And whether it's, arguing and then making up and spending time together and going out on dates or whatever it might be, that's all part of that big mix. And you hope at the end through that process, you grow and love each other. And, you look back on your life, after being married for 50 years, look back at it and say, man, what a great job we did, right? Through all the ups and downs. That's kind of the vision that I've always had in my mind. My parents been married, they just celebrated 56 years, and they've had lots of ups and downs through that process, but they're still at it. So
awesome.
It's important for us to have these conversations. I think another concept that and I don't want to get into it today unless you guys want to, but dating our wives, and then it's the concept, you guys both have daughters. It's I've been thinking a lot about this idea of dating my daughters, and almost like literally taking my daughters on dates. And not just because it's cute and it's cool to talk about, but it's because I know some guy's going to come around someday and want to take them on a date.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to make it very clear what a date is, how they should be treated, how they should be talked to. I want them to hear from me how beautiful I think they are, and how wonderful I think they are, and how special I think they are. Because I feel like if they've heard it enough times, or they've been on enough good, solid dates with dad, that the first booger-nosed kid that comes along that's going to want to try to hook up with her and says, hey, you're pretty, and I hope my daughters will say, I already know that. My dad already told me that, and you think you're going to buy me a slice of pizza or stick me with the bill, then this is no date. I think I'm really thinking about this concept because as I'm saying to my son going on, spending time with his friends and kind of being more social, I'm realizing that my girls are going to get to that point. And the time that we spend and what we model, how I'm modeling with their mom, or I'm modeling it when I spend time with them, is such an important part of showing them how they should be treated.
Well,
and also, you do the same thing with Max. I talk to the boys, I talk to my sons and teach them how they're to treat their sister, because we want her to understand how important she is and how strong she is and what she should expect in a relationship with guys. And they're good with that, because it's important that we, the whole family is a part of it. It's not just us as dads, although obviously we're the ringleader and we're directing the way this thing goes. But if there's older brothers or anybody else in the mix, we have to make sure that they're on board with it too. If they're teasing her or playing with her and she says no, they have to understand that no means no. It's good for them to hear. It's also great for her to understand that she has that power.
Well, and you're also them how to treat some other guy's daughter.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Indeed.
She's somebody else's princess.
Yeah.
Right.
But I certainly took my girls out. I remember one Valentine's Day, my girls were probably in junior high or something like that. And I took the three of them out for dinner, and we dressed up and got them corsages and all that thing. But it's the same thing, kind of setting that bar. But, talking about dating our wives and showing our daughters and all that, just a win that I had years ago. My oldest daughter is my stepdaughter, and she didn't want me around at first. She was not excited to have me in her life. But probably in high school, my wife was driving her and a friend around somewhere, and she could listen to the girls talking out back, and she heard them say, when I date or I get married, I want a guy like Rok that treats me the way he treats my mom.
Wow.
Right? So they're watching, right? All the time. That's a big thing.
Nice.
Live the way you want them to live, because they're watching all the time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Rok, and that's
so you're saying that my daughter's going to say when the time comes, I'm looking for a chubby Italian man?
Probably.
That's what you're saying. I'm looking for a chubby Italian man who grows way too much facial hair in the wintertime. That's the line she's setting.
Only the best.
Great.
All right, guys. Well, Rok, I just needed Rok to be on the call until he dropped the rock bomb, and that was really it for me. So
well played.
We keep him on until that was the wisdom that I needed for the day. And you know what, Rok, I really appreciate you and your friendship. Your contribution inside the group and your interaction with a lot of the members, helping guys out, and your comments and things in there is awesome. I appreciate that. And of course, Rob, you as well. So it's cool to be in this group. So guys, if you're out there, dads, if you're out there, you want to be part of an accountability group on Facebook. It's called the Good Dads Club, the Good Dads Club. Go to the website. You'll be able to access this video podcast as well as articles that we write, and access the Good Dads Club on Facebook. There's a little button there. You click it, and then you could ask to join our club, and we'd love to have you there as a member. So that's that. Also, I don't know how podcasts really work. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I've been learning quite a bit over the last few months on how to run this group and things like that. But if you have Apple or you have iTunes, subscribe there. 5-star ratings are apparently a good thing to have. We would like those. Leave comments. Let us know what you think. Also, we have a fan page on Facebook. It's the Good Dads Club podcast. You can check us out there. So it would be iTunes, Stitcher. I have to figure out how to get on Google Play if we're not, and Spotify, and maybe today I'll figure that stuff out. So look for us out there. Make sure.
Tinder. Are we on Tinder?
What's that? Tinder?
Are we on Tinder?
Not yet. I haven't figured that out.
Not yet. Cool.
I don't even know what that is.
Neither do I. I just know that
because my wife listens to this. I don't know what that is. I started dating before any online dating. I don't have you guys too, I'm sure. I don't even know how that works.
No.
I don't know what that is, Rob, but maybe you can explain.
It's a dating /
I know what it is.
All right.
I watch Shameless. I know what Tinder's all about.
All right, guys. So we're about out of time for this week. This is kind of how we like to roll. Dads talking about dad stuff. That's what the Good Dads Club podcast is all about. Appreciate you out there. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, guys.
Good talking to you, Rok.
Same.